Welcome back to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thank you for spending time with us. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi, Alan.
Hey, good morning, Fred.
Good morning. And we are happy to have with us once again from Sweden, consultant and publisher of The Dispatcher, Michael Senna. Hi, Michael.
Good to be back. Good to see you both.
I hope it was a terrific summer. And
it was a great summer.
Just mentioned, also joining us again is Bryce Rasmussen, Princeton class of 25, who's been doing some great work with Alan over the summer, as you may have seen in our last episode. Hi, Bryce.
Nice to talk to you again, Fred. Good to meet you, Michael.
And we're going to turn first to some headlines from the new edition of The Dispatcher after a little hiatus here. Another very worthwhile read that takes us from Steinbeck to standards for driverless vehicles. And both, Michael, are related to your summer visit to the U.S.
Well, the first visit, which is the one that will be coming into the musings when I release that in a couple of weeks, was the visit that I made back in April and May to Princeton, primarily Princeton, ostensibly for the Smart Driving Car Summit, which was, I won't say canceled, it was postponed until a later date. So I had a lot of time, including having a wonderful dinner with my friends, including Fred and his wife, meeting Alan and actually having dinner with him as well. Yeah, it became a very different type of 3 or 4 days, actually 5 days in Princeton, getting to see the town for maybe the first time in quite a while with new eyes, and then continuing on to Philadelphia and through Scranton, up through Scranton, and then back. So it was two very good weeks. So part of what I experienced in that 2-week period is going to be showing up in musings. But the main article, and one of the main reasons that I decided that I needed a 3-month break, well, there were two. One was that I felt my readers were getting overwhelmed with the amount of reading I was giving them. But second was that I needed to have some time to write that lead article. As you've seen, it is long. I decided that I wanted to change the direction of the conversation around driverless cars. It seems to me, and continues to seem to me, that it's like, if I look at a video, I'm an expert. And I firmly believe that the person who's making that video, because he's made a video, or she, is an expert. And I know that's not true, because I watch videos of people tying flies all the time. And I say to myself, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. And so the opening of the article, the lead article, is an experience that I had, actual experience, driving to the Newark airport after the 2 weeks in Princeton and Scranton, listening to my favorite public radio station. And there was something on there about a young boy who had listened to a video and had died as a result of following the direction in the video. And the directions were, hold your breath until you pass out. Hold your breath until you pass out. And he did. And he did. And he died. Because he didn't listen to, well, he didn't listen to his own head, and he probably didn't listen to the other video, which says, if you do this, you have a chance of dying. What I wanted to say with this is that we need to be better about the whole issue of what we're actually discussing with driverless cars. Driverless cars will have robots performing the task of driving. Those robots are not humans. They're not sentient. They're not there's nothing close to being to them having the possibilities of doing what humans do. So in this lead article, I've tried to put the issues which are very, very important, but which are not being discussed. The closest we get to a discussion about the difference between a robot and a human is the trolley problem, which is really not, it's such a terrible analogy to be using in the context of driverless cars. So I know it's I know it's long, and I know it's got a lot of information in it, but I feel that the time that I put into it will be worthwhile, hopefully, for people who do take the time to read it.
I know it's impossible to summarize, but I don't know if you want to. I mean, one of the things that you say.
If I can jump
ahead,
in,
Alan.
because a lot of people I have commented on the poor trolley problem in the past, and I've said I've refused to even participate in any more discussions on the trolley problem. This is like whatever, because I probably need 3 cocktails in which to be able to sit through it. But I must admit, Michael, you did a really fantastic job in discussing the trolley problem in this context. Essentially, certainly the best that I've heard. So I really do want to encourage our readers and and you to go on and describe the context that you put the trolley problem in here. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the key is that the other example that I give is that there was a 5-year-old who stole his family's car. The classic runaway. I don't like my parents anymore, and I'm gonna go someplace, and I'm gonna leave them. And so the kid stole a car. Ostensibly, he was in Idaho or someplace like that. Someplace in the middle of the country.
Watch it.
Yeah,
I
know. It's not Iowa. And he was going to drive to California, and because that's where people would understand him. And he got pretty far. I mean, he took off in the car, and he was driving for, I don't know, long enough to be able to get on a highway and get the attention of a police officer who, police officer who pulled him over. It's a 5-year-old kid driving a car. Essentially, what we have today are the equivalents of driverless cars being driven by 5-year-olds. I mean, a 5-year-old can get in a car, can start the car, can put it on a highway, and can drive that car without getting himself into an accident. That's basically what we have today with our so-called driverless cars. We don't have cars that drive like humans. Humans and robots are 2 different things. We cannot, at this point, program a robot to drive in the same way that humans drive. And that's the other part of what I wanted to put into this article. There's got to be some fundamental information about how we as humans do things that are different from animals. We're mammals, but they do things, and they have brains, and they do certain things. And sometimes we say, "Oh, they're really smart. That bird is really smart. That chimpanzee look at what that chimpanzee can do." But they can't do what humans can do, and that's why we are where we are. Sorry, folks, but if I'm offending anyone, I really apologize. But that's just the reality of it, and we cannot think about the tasks of driving as something that can be done by a 5-year-old or by a chimpanzee. We need to have people who are in a position of providing the methodologies that enable a car to be driven in an equivalent way as a human being. And we're not even addressing those issues at this point. And that's the other reason why I wrote the article. Whether it gets read, whether somebody comes back and say, there are so many holes that I can punch into this article that you've written, fine, do that, but let's have that conversation.
So what you're talking about are standards that
Yes.
are needed, that need to be developed, and you're saying don't rush that.
Exactly. There are 4 points that I've made in terms of the recommendations for a robust standards process. This whole article is about getting people who are capable. And one of the most important things in being capable is that you don't call in Einstein. The guy didn't even have a driver's license. Get people who know what it is to drive a car, who are capable of understanding what it takes to drive a car. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you've never driven a car, you shouldn't be getting close to anything related to taking people out of cars and putting robots in them. So first of all, make sure that you've got people who are capable of doing this because they know what it is. The other thing that's very important, and that it goes through the entire article, is that we have to remove individual biases. If we have one car doing one thing because it's been programmed by Elon Musk or someone like him telling people, you do it this way, and we have another group who are programming with someone else who's in charge saying, you do things this way, you now have essentially, you've got two standards. You've got driverless cars with two standards. If a human can manage those problems, but we still have 40,000 people being killed in cars in the United States and 28,000 within the EU. We still make a lot of mistakes, and don't even believe in the slightest possibility that cars with different biases are not going to make the same kinds of mistakes, because I do one thing and you do something else. And I gave the example of that. Two cars are going at each other and suddenly somebody's in your lane and you don't know why that person is there. Is that person intent on killing you and him? He's using you as a suicide weapon, or has he fallen asleep? Or did I wake up in Sweden when yesterday I was in England driving a car, and that actually happened to me. I was driving out of the driveway this is many years ago, but I was in the wrong lane and someone was coming at me. I'm thinking, what is that person doing? Why is that person in the wrong lane? Until I realized I was in the wrong lane. Those kinds of things can happen. So you don't know why that person is coming at you at 90 miles an hour. And what am I going to do? There has to be some set of rules, and I call them standards, that say these are the things that you need to be aware of, and these are the conditions that you have to take into account. That's just one example. There are hundreds of those kinds of examples. So eliminate the biases. There is no urgency in this. There's nothing forcing us to get people into cars with no driver. There's nothing that's making that an essential thing, other than what Alan and I are writing about in our book, which is there is a problem that can be solved, but we don't have to solve that problem at the expense of safety. We can make sure that things are working properly, and the way that we can make sure that things are working properly is that we have good standards that everyone is following, and that there aren't any rogues out there who are doing things that, I can do this over here, but I can do it over here, and it's the same thing. Why can't I do it in your country? I can do it in Saudi Arabia, so why can't I do it here? And then the third is to really look at what the different systems, the thinking, the control systems, the way we work, the way we think, to get those right, to get the people in the room who are also capable of explaining these things to the people who know how to drive and know the physics and also know the programming capabilities. So it's these four things: objectiveness, get the systems and types straight, eliminate the biases, and don't rush it.
Alan,
Well,
I know
yeah.
Go ahead. I know
Yeah.
you've spoken for years about the need for cooperation when it comes to safety. I mean, there's a piece of that in what I think Michael is saying, but there's also, I mean, the desire to start providing new forms of mobility to people who need it. So how do these pieces fit together?
Well, I think that it's all extremely difficult, as we're all finding that it is extremely difficult. And then what I certainly appreciate by what Michael put out is of course the depth to which this is in some sense a conundrum. It is really difficult, and bringing out all the Dan Kahneman concepts with respect to cognitive thought and so on. This is what I try to bring to my students. I mean, Dan Dan was a professor here, so I times I disagreed with Dan because I consider us all rational because by my definition of rationality and by what I choose to believe with respect to how we fundamentally end up making decisions. Because if we have alternatives, I sort of come out as I'm a pick from the top person. And however our brain is oriented and whatever the various options that we have, whether they be, the sort of some people call knee jerk, which are sort of, I mean, if you look at an athlete, they don't have time to think. Everything happens. I mean, it happens in the spinal column in some sense in terms of the decision making that goes on. It doesn't have time to go to the brain and come back. And however that comes, it comes from a choice process somewhere where you end up picking from the top. But that picking from the top includes the various components, the two important components that Michael points out there. And we might think we could go back and write an equation for it in terms with coefficient out in front to whatever function in the front, like a hyperbolic cosine of the inverse square root of who knows what, out there. But in fact, this is, I think that this is how we're wired and so on. And of course, it comes into the whole process of what the information that we happen to have, not have, how we treated the biases. Even I said as I greeted the freshmen in engineering yesterday, we all have to look into the future in terms of making decisions, and looking into the future. The future is uncertain, and my typical line is it's a good thing that God, when she made the future, she made it uncertain. Otherwise, the world would be really boring. I mean, we just use F equals ma, we'd be done. It's not deterministic. It has this distribution associated with it, this variation. And it's great that we're all different too. Otherwise, again, it would be really boring if we were all the same. So all this has to be taken into account when we deal with not just the instantaneous decision that is posed in a trolley problem, but the continuous, who knows how many decisions that are made as we progress forward, trying to not hit something. And it's just in some sense mind-boggling as to everything that goes on, and the fact that we're actually in some sense able to do it. It surprises me I can drive down Nassau Street without sideswiping every car parked along there. So and then I throw in there and say it must be easy because I can do it. I mean, geez, otherwise I'd fail all the time. And I'll have a comment probably to make about that a little bit later on another on a side topic. So I just think this is, Michael, I just thank you so very much. Classes start a week from today. Well, make sure they read this one, because it's worth them thinking. I mean, this is a really tough problem. Okay. Now, I'd also like to say there are some things that people are trying to do with this that maybe certainly we should wait. We don't need to go 90 miles an hour if that's fast. I don't know what fast is. Speed is this concept of who knows how fast we're going through the universe right now anyway. Okay. But fast relative to other things around, like stationary trees, or the kinds of things that come at us. Uh, those are the speeds we're talking about, and 90 miles an hour is fast. Where are we trying to get to so fast? If I want to go to Sweden, I might want to go fast. But if I'm going to my office, it's a mile away. You know, maybe walking's just fine, or going. What are we going fast? And certainly, having the opportunity of not only time to make a more correct decision, but also the implications. Because if we're all just moving at 25 miles an hour to get to most of the things that we do in a typical day, then even if we run it head on into each other, the consequences may not be, they may be worth, we may be able to justify them in some sense, because also Michael points out there, the whole thing is, somewhat worth it. There's everything's a risk. The future's a risk. It's uncertain. It is a risk. I mean, otherwise, again, if NHTSA wants to be really safe, let's stay home. Okay, everybody stay home. But then the house is going to burn down. I'm going to die, or it's going to get hit by a hurricane, and we're thinking of Jeff Brandis and folks in Tampa. I guess some of us are going down to Florida. Automated Vehicle Symposium, which starts basically a week from now. Hopefully everything is okay down there in Tampa. But anyway.
Well said, Alan. Michael, you have another headline in the Dispatcher: Rudderless at NHTSA.
Yeah, NHTSA has turned out to be one of the issues that they're one of the topics that just keeps coming back more and more. It's in my estimation, it's one of the most important agencies or organizations within the U.S. federal government, but for some reason it's being treated like it's like a backwater. I mean, it had no one there during the 4 years that the former guy was in power, and since then it essentially hasn't had anybody who's been in charge either. I mean, they chose one person who, after a few months decided he was going to do something that he was qualified to do. And what I've said here is that the reason that this is happening is it's not culture wars. It's not, political backstabbing. It's people who are responsible for putting the person in charge of this organization is putting someone there to do something that the agency is not intended for. It's not a climate change agency. It's not the Environmental Protection Agency. It shouldn't have people who are in there with an agenda that has absolutely nothing to do with traffic safety. That's what this organization is there for. This organization, NHTSA, was established and is for traffic safety. Now, it took on the role of being somehow connected to having cars on the streets and highways that are less polluting. But as I said in the article, it did that basically to protect its territory. The EPA should be doing what it's doing. NHTSA should be doing what it's not doing, which is making sure that traffic safety is its major issue. And this administration should stop putting people in there who have a completely different agenda from the people who are working there. If I come in into an organization, let's say I come into a club, and the club is intended to, it's a fishing club, and I come in there, and I'm not only am I not a fisherman, but I think that nobody should be fishing. So I come in, I'm the new chief in charge of the fishing club, and I say, you people shouldn't even be fishing. why in goodness name would that person have been appointed the head of a fishing club if he doesn't want to, or she doesn't want to people to fish? Well, maybe because the people who are in charge of the world don't want people to fish, and this is one way of doing it. Get everybody in there who's against whatever these people are doing. That's what it seems like to me. If you don't want NHTSA to be in the traffic business, then stop the silliness and disband NHTSA. But if you want it to be in the traffic business, put people in charge of it who are interested in, qualified for, and have a burning desire to ensure that the agency is doing what it should be doing.
And I add on to that they should want people to be able to improve their quality of life by going someplace. I mean,
exactly.
There has to. I mean, life's a trade-off. Okay, life is a trade-off, and there are desires and limitations, and there's value and there's cost. And you have to do both ends. Otherwise you get all this like silliness of vision zeros and stuff. I mean, these things are hard, okay? And you talk about that throughout your articles here, Michael. And again, encourage the readers to. You're such a good writer, Michael.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. I've been beating up Tesla. You know that. But the reason that I do is not because I don't like Tesla. In fact, I like what they do. I like their business model. I like everything about them. There's something here that, and this is next issue, but it's something that's important to say here. Tesla's mission. Their mission statement is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's their mission statement. How are they going to do it? That's their strategy. Change the fundamental design of a product that people want, the car, from being a contributor to pollution to being climate neutral. You read a mission statement and a strategy for any other car company today, particularly today, and you don't have any clarity like this one from Tesla. Tesla is doing exactly what it says it wants to do. Now we can question whether electric cars is the way to go about that. We can do that. They could be doing something completely different, but they've got a mission and they've got a strategy. If your mission doesn't equal your strategy, and if you've got a lousy mission to start with, or if your mission is so wishy-washy that you could be pushing vacuum cleaners versus pushing cars, and there's one company that currently is doing that, then you don't have that kind of clarity. So this is what NHTSA and the governments should be doing, making sure that, as you say, we've got cars. People want to drive them. People need to drive them. 80% of the trips, wherever you are, basically are taken, except for New York City, are taken using them. They solve problems that buses and trams and subways don't solve. Don't punish people for driving cars. Make the cars better.
And then on that note, you bring up the subject of electrofuels, which people on this side of the pond, so to speak, maybe never have heard of. Tell us more.
Well, I'm not an expert in this. We have a very good friend, Fred Dreyer, who is an expert on this, and I'd love to have him expound on this, which he of course can. But electrofuels, e-fuels, are potentially an answer that they're not in search of a problem. The problem exists. We have fossil fuels that create carbon emissions. We have cars that use fossil fuels, and the only thing we can do is reduce and reduce and reduce the amount of fossil fuels that they need, so we can reduce the amount of emissions. But if we could produce fuels that are used by cars that essentially are carbon neutral for a different reason. They're not carbon neutral because they don't push out carbon into the atmosphere. They're carbon neutral because they take carbon from the atmosphere, make it into a fuel, and then put it back. So essentially, we're not adding anything more. This is the other thing that I mean, there's a bunch of carbon up there, and that's the problem. If we could just take all that carbon out and start over again and throw it back up, we'd have another 50 or 100 years to put it all back. But we're 100 years away now. We've got 100 years of carbon that we've thrown up there, and we can't take it out. It's still there, and everything we put up, it just adds more and more and more, which is creating the problem.
I like to say we need to eat it.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
We need to eat it.
And that's what electric fuels.
To me, that's the, it's such a simple concept. If we eat it, then I don't know, maybe we poop it. Okay. Yeah. But that's what it does, and a lot of people want carbon sequestration, capture in all sorts of various ways. Great, in which, we just eat and it disappears. But at least in this thing, we can eat it, use it, give it, and it balances out. And it's especially important when we talk about aviation. If we decide that we want to fly because of where we want to go, and their speed is a different thing. Okay, it's not the 25 miles an hour or whatever that's fine and dandy and throughout Princeton or Central Jersey, but you've got it. It's tough to hang. The darn batteries, we haven't done the improvement in batteries. I love what we've done with computers in the last 50 years. We haven't had Moore's law. If we do, then hey, then great. Then it's a different discussion. But go ahead, Michael.
You were doing just fine.
Moving along in the dispatcher. I mean, and related to this is the China coal story that you have in here, Michael pointing out.
Well, I never lose a chance to put in a negative plug for China. And then, as I say at the end of the article, I have a suggestion for the Friday for futurists: glue our hands to the rotus and splash paint on the paintingists. Move your protest to China. That's where more than 50% of the world's action is, even on a per capita basis. China it's wonderful in terms of saying, we're going to do this, we're going to control this, and we're going to basically be number one in everything. And if you look at everything that they're number one in, one of the big ones is how much coal they use. It's no mystery to why they're able to produce as much as they produce and to generate as much electricity as they generate for electric cars. They're burning twice as much coal as the rest of the world combined. Now, we had, God bless his soul, Hans Rosling was a genius. He was a very, very good scientist, and he was able to explain things in ways that people could understand what he was talking about very quickly. And he wrote a book called Factfulness. And in this book, he says, look, it's one thing to say that China burns a lot of coal, but on a per capita basis, are they really that bad compared to, let's say, the United States or the EU? So I took a step back just so that I wasn't stepping on China's toes, because they don't like their toes being stepped on. To say on a per capita basis, how are they doing? Well, as it turns out, they're not doing so well on a per capita basis either. If we want to be protesting, and if we want to make sure that we're controlling the amount of carbon that's going into the atmosphere, we've got to rein China in. China is not a developing country. We shouldn't be treating them like we are currently under the UN acts of of the developing nations like India and China and others, and then the developed world like the EU. And this is the reason why the Republicans have been doing so well on this whole issue, by saying, look, we're doing everything we can to reduce our emissions, everything we can to be better. And there you have these countries over there treating them like they're developing because they want to catch up to us. Well, we don't want them to catch up to us. We want to continue to be number one. And so this is the issue that we have. And then you've got people inside the government. The fellow who ran for president from Massachusetts, who's it's like he's in a completely different world. What we have to be best. We have to reduce everything that we're doing, and listening to everybody saying, we have to be absolutely number one, and everybody else will follow us. Well, unfortunately, we are number one, but everyone else isn't following us, including China and the others. So it's just to give us a little sense of reality here. If any one of the, glue your hands to the roads is listening, or splashing paint on paintings is listening.
Well, there is much more to read, including the real origin of the Cybertruck. But let's turn to Alan and then Bryce. Alan, Tesla got your attention once again in the latest Smart Driving Cars newsletter, with Elon Musk live streaming FSD Beta V12, including a pretty significant disengagement.
Yeah. I watched some. I'd like to think I watch many of these, and the many that I watch, I try to figure out what the objective really is of the people that are making these, as Michael said, with respect to the videos that are being made. And I try to look at where the smoke and mirrors are, and where they're not quite telling us, and what is really going on. And I do that because, I guess in part I'm cynical. Another part because I've had the good fortune of having some other people who really knew what was going on in some of these things tell me this was really what was going on in these things. And so it's just fueled my cynicism, and I don't need to divulge who those folks are and so on. And it just, I guess people have learned every once in a while I put the come on mans in smart driving cars that say, oh, come on, man. I mean, really. And I guess with this one, I was watching the speedometer for much of it, and it is, it's 25 miles an hour and so on. And I guess they do go fast a little bit and so on, but it is, and it's moving around in Palo Alto or whatever. And I guess I'm jealous of Palo Alto. No, I'm really not. Princeton's way better. I mean, without a doubt, better. And a couple people are going for a ride. And in terms of doing stuff, I couldn't see where they were faking it. I didn't pick it up. I'm going to look at it some more and so on, and see whether or not, they were faking it. And I guess, I'm such a fanboy. I guess I believe it. I believe it. And if one is just trying to get around, we'll talk about a little later, get a ride to go someplace and whatever. Whatever. We're not there yet. But of the folks that I've seen, and the experiences that I've had, and the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into trying to do it myself and so on, I was pretty well impressed. But again, I'm a diss, and other people should. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. Everybody take a look, okay? We still have a hell of a long way to go. And as Michael said, this brain up here that ends up doing what we do, can't necessarily fly 15,000 miles like this bird I was reading about in the New York Times or something yesterday, or my wife Elizabeth brought up to me, and stuff that we really can't do. But, anyway, so I don't know. People should take a look at it. And then, they had a disengagement. Okay. And of course, the headlines have been about the disengagement, and they should be. They shouldn't have had one. I mean, we want to get to zero. We're not going to have anybody in there. The probability that we're going to have a disengagement has to be really small. But I do point out, and appropriately so, that people like Waymo, who have been absolutely as diligent as anybody could expect, and will try to make sure that, in fact, they do it right and fix the problems when they trip over them, because you don't know what you don't know. And you're out there trying to find out what you don't know and what it is that it needs to be able to do. I mean, whatever, and so on. And I didn't know that if I held my breath until I passed out, whatever, or I should have known, maybe I should, who knows, whatever, that whole business that Michael talked about. I'm wondering what would the implication is that, it would have been terrible and like maybe likely so. But it'd be nice if Waymo would go in there and take that disengagement and figure out through their simulators, the scenarios and things like that of distribution of what would have happened if the intervention hadn't occurred. And that discussion hasn't been made yet. What I do know is I've done that. I've been in that situation. I've been in that exact situation more than once, in which that turn arrow, I misinterpreted it as being my green. And I've taken my foot off the brake, hit the gas. I've done it. Now, luckily, I guess, in the whatever nanoseconds and so on that go on after that, I came to the realization, and I hit the brake. Okay? Now, I don't know. We don't know. There's only one reality out there. We know that the reality was disengagement. But we don't know what the system would have done if the disengagement went, which is the whole purpose of how Waymo argues, rightly so. Let's go through the simulators and see what would have been. And we shouldn't have even done that. Agreed. But that's may not be the whole story. Plus, we should fix it to not do it at all. And I know I've done this more than once, and I tried to correct myself from this because I know, geez, that's not a good thing. And I don't know how many other people have been out there, and we've all been in those situations. And so, again, this is something, it's great that they tripped over it. I'm essentially certain they'll go in there and put the enormous, they do have a lot of horsepower working on this. And probably the thing that should scare everybody is the amount of horsepower that they're apparently putting in on this. The game's not over. We talk about $300 billion being invested in, this technology since DARPA, give or take, whatever the number is that accumulated, the integral of that over all the countries and all the efforts and around the world, China included, whatever. But, some of the discussion that Rob Maher brings out in terms of what apparently in addressing their mission, the intent is to put in this in the future is, boy, if I was one of the other folks out there, trying to do this, I better have some really good students like Bryce, working with me to figure out, because I still claim there is an easy solution to this. Don't run into things. We just haven't figured out the elegant way to do it yet. I still I tell Bryce and the rest of my students, look, in my office, there isn't blood scattered all over the walls from the fleas that must have been here. I'm here, so there must have been fleas that fly around and don't smash into the wall.
There's
So
another message here too, I think, Alan. By live streaming this, he showed all of these people who have purchased FSD that, yeah, you better be paying attention. Because even
well,
Elon
yeah,
Musk,
no, absolutely, of course, but I
that's
think
a
they
key
have. I
message
think
here.
they have. I think they. I don't. Who knows? I mean, the amplification that goes on with the inner tubes that are out there and all the whatevers is such that one little comment here gets, whereas another really solid piece of information just dies. So the amplification that goes on by who knows whom, by for whatever reason, what, and people could say we're doing amplification ourselves here. Whatever it is that I guess, everybody knows I'm on a mission for something. I am on a mission for something. I I do think I do think that automation at some point is a potential way to improve the lives of folks whose lives would love to be improved. Why not? I mean, it looks like I'm wrapping myself in an American flag and apple pie and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, these are tough, but boy,
And I think that leads us to the Florida AV Summit and bringing Bryce in here. It's approaching next week, and you and Bryce have been pretty busy getting ready for it, and you've got some stuff to show.
yeah. So just to bring Bryce up, last week we sort of showed kind of the planning piece of the tools that we're trying to put together. The whole question is does any of this stuff really make sense in terms of operating, in terms of the way people might want to just get a ride?
Okay, so I guess we'll just start out back at the ODD we created last week. And kind of once you get to a good point where you want to be here, we create a simulation with a few sets of parameters. I've got a couple prepared that we can just take a look at right now.
So basically what we're doing here with this is saying, okay, we have these folks here in Tampa that need a ride, or at least these virtual folks that need a ride. This is virtual. This is the second life version of Tampa. It is all completely a creation by using code instead of being real. But these are real distributions of activities for which people want to go, for which we put together a network, for which now we're beginning and we start looking at it. Bryce, what are we doing? What are we looking at here?
Okay, so right now we have the ODD. Then we are taking in customers who, based on a probability, decided to try to use our system today. And we're just running through the day, seeing passengers arrive.
And so why don't you pause and describe what is all over the screen, because, people are seeing this and they're seeing moving, describe, take a second to tell us what's out here.
Okay, so to start, let's just zoom in and show one kiosk. So this is the #1 kiosk in the ODD with the most trips down in downtown on North Franklin Street. You can see here that there's currently 4 cars waiting at the kiosk and 2 individuals that have been placed in 2 different groupings, which the groupings are important for potential ride sharing. Then if you come...
Wait, now tell us the data that's around there and so on, so that people can look at the numbers. I mean, this is, the idea is to try to understand how one might serve the mobility, if this in fact is, and again, this is all virtual. These are virtual people in virtual locations. And so what are all the numbers out there? Take a second and just go around the screen.
Okay, so right now with the simulation, we're doing it with a total fleet size 100 vehicles. Whereas that was kind of chosen somewhat arbitrarily at this point, and I find it tends to be helpful to do a couple different simulations, varying some numbers a little bit, to really try to find the ideal number of vehicles for the demand you're looking at.
So we're basically saying to ourselves, we're going to set up an entity here that's going to provide this mobility. We're going to provide the mobility from these locations, of which there are 51 locations? 82 locations that have been selected out here because of the distribution of where these virtual people might want to come from and go to. And we've the algorithm has gone in there and suggested that they should be there, of which you just focused in on the number one. And up on the upper left-hand corner, we see that what we have is our fleet that we have. We went to who knows what showroom that's making vehicles, and we bought 100 of them. And we're throwing them out there, and we're going to see, hey, how are we going to use these 100? And these 100 vehicles are going to be somewhat magical. The magical aspects of these vehicles is that they're going to give rides. And they're just going to give rides. They're going to be, as I like to say, they're going to use an elevator service model. We're going to ask the folks who want to ride, these virtual folks, to go to an elevator bank. We call them kiosks. And sitting there is likely to be a vehicle with its doors open saying, hey, get in. Just like an elevator might be sitting there, hey, get in, and that we've all experienced, or one's going to show up that we're going to get in. And we have a service parameter out here that we happen to set, I think, on this one, right, Bryce? After we show up at one of these kiosks, we expect to be served, absolutely expect to be served within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Otherwise, we're going to complain to Michael Senna, who's the poobah there, that, darn it, we didn't get served.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, and it's going to leave. Okay. Just like when you get in an elevator, you expect that door to close. I don't know if we would provide buttons for you to close the door so that when I get in there, I try to close the door to make sure that Fred doesn't come in with us or something like that. Right, Bryce? Or certainly not you, Bryce. You can't ride with Professor. I mean, professors have separate elevators. Oh, whatever. I mean, yeah, think of the silliness, and so on. And then it's going to take. So if I want you to show, if I'm going to kiosk 28, do you know where kiosk 28 is in your? I don't know. I'm not. How about kiosk 20? It's like one in the center. Okay. Kiosk 42, let's put it. I'm going from kiosk, pick one, okay? Because I'm going to, this virtual person going to walk to one of those buildings or so on that are depicted below, all right? That's what it's trying to serve. And it's sitting down there in the lower left-hand corner. You can see that it's sitting down there at 1:25:20 a.m., okay? And we're going to run this thing for a whole day, and up at the top we sort of have what the bottom line is of the whole day is that 13,000 up in the upper left hand corner, 085 trips are going to be attempted in this, because we've already run it through the future. And this is virtual reality. We can move back and forth in time. We don't have this we don't have to deal with God. She's by the side here. And we have and it turns out that at the end of this one, we can see that 9,285 people apparently aren't going to complain to Michael that they weren't served appropriately, but there are 3,800 people that, darn it, you came up short. Okay, darn it, we don't like you. Okay, And then some other things in terms of average vehicle occupancies, miles distance traveled, average trip time, a whole bunch of other stuff. On the lower left-hand corner, back to there, it is an attempt to provide people with what is going on right now. So at 1:25:20 a.m., there are 6 vehicles moving. And out of our fleet of 100 vehicles, we have 50 of them basically spread out throughout the city waiting for people. And I guess we have 44 of them in which they're being cleaned out or recharged or having their tires changed or having who knows what at some depot someplace that are being serviced. And right now, 14 people are being served. 6 of them happen to be in vehicles moving around. And can we find the 6? Where are the 6? Or at least in what you see. And if you,
we
there's
can
one
see
there.
2
Oh,
right here.
okay. So mouse over one of them so that we can see what the heck's happening in that vehicle. I mean, the data's there. The simulation, you have all the stuff. So this is vehicle number 39 of our fleet of 100. It has 1 passenger in there. It's going to kiosk number 1. Okay. Which I thought we could name these kiosks. I thought we weren't MIT. I thought we gave them names. What were the names? Oh, never mind.
It does have an
Oh, we
does
do
have a
have
name.
names, but maybe we should, use the
Yeah.
names everywhere. We're not MIT, have, buildings called with numbers. What? Go ahead. And you mouse over and mouse over that person again in that vehicle. We're peeking in there because, of course, we have a command center that has all this and we're watching what's going on. We know that this isn't an autonomous thing. We're running this thing. It's watching it. And it's going to take 9.4 minutes to go the 4.1 miles between wherever it came from to its destination. Okay. So this is what exists here. You can mouse over the other vehicle and see what happens there. Mouse over another one. Okay. I mean, just mouse. You can sit there and actually learn what is going on. Somewhat easily interactive graphically. Boom. This is okay. So and so far, since midnight, although we started at midnight at 0, there's some people when we run it when we get back to midnight again, they're still going to where they're going. So there's an end problem, an end issue that's going. We're just doing one typical day, not an end problem. And we've served 255 people so far. We've had and I assume that what you put out there, that 255, Bryce, are the people that aren't calling up Michael saying, "Hey, yo, you didn't serve me." Right? Why? Because it's this is middle of the night. We got vehicles coming out of our ears. Okay. We should have them deployed in places. I said, at least they can get to us within 5 minutes when we just show up here saying, "Hey, yo, I want to ride." And so, otherwise we're not doing our job, right, Bryce? And you have to get back to work and do a lot more. Darn it, Bryce, please. Okay.
Yeah,
be good. Yeah. I mean, cut it out. Okay.
Gotta make improvements.
And it tells us we haven't missed any customers so far. Oh, we're so good. I mean, what a great dashboard. Let her rip. Now let's watch what goes on in time. So we can just let the sucker go.
Right now we're moving at roughly a minute per second. So about 60 times normal.
Yeah, 60 times normal. Make it faster. I mean, nothing much has happened. We know nothing much happens during the night. We're 2 a.m. Keep just string it, move it forward faster. Okay, let's stop it. Let's stop. Okay, you skipped it. Stop. Okay, thank you. I mean, the beauty of this thing, you just sit there and play yourself and do this yourself. Okay, that's the beauty of this. So here we have it, 6:50, 6:41 a.m., the lower left-hand corner. What? There's only one vehicle moving with the things. I guess everybody did go to sleep and I guess they wake up early in Tampa, but they don't get out there too early yet. So keep it going. Go. So jump it up till people start getting out there. 7:27, 7:32, 7. Oh my goodness! Hold, stop it. At 7:54, we have 44 passengers vehicles moving, 28 with passengers, and 16 are moving empty. We're repositioning already. We probably should improve our empty repositioning algorithm. I don't know, really. I mean, come on, Bryce. Okay, we need some better code in here, but what the heck? This is where we are right now. 123 passengers, jump it up, move it up to let's move it up to 9 o'clock or something like that, where we can really see some stuff. Let her go, rip it up. Okay, we have now 81. Oh, 81. Pause it. Did you go by it? Where in the heck are we in time? Keep it going. We had a peak out there. Keep it going. We'll go in other vehicles. Let's get when we have a 82. Stop. Back up a little. See if you can back up a little to where we had like 80 some vehicles moving, or 59. Let's do 60. 82. Great. At 8:32:00 a.m. there are 82 vehicles going out there, and they're all over the place, right? And 69 of them have passengers, and I guess we have our whole fleet out there. Okay, because there are 18 vehicles that are sitting someplace waiting for customers,
or likely that they are actually at a kiosk with at least one customer in.
Okay, so they already got there. That's great, wonderful, and we can go take a look at that by just zooming into the kiosk. 132 passengers are being served right now. Okay, and let's zoom in on. Let's just pick one. How about pick a? What's a green? What's a green one?
Well, you'll kind of see down in the bottom right, all of the cars are color coded based on the amount of passengers.
We have a couple green ones. Go on a green one. There are 3. There's ride sharing going on in virtual Tampa. Go to one of the green ones right there in the center. Isn't there that? What's that guy? This is vehicle number 68. It's carrying ride sharing. Oh my goodness. And one's going to kiosk 1, and 2 of the people are going to kiosk 3, and trip time duration, distance and trips, all the other stuff. Oh my goodness. And where are we right now? We also have 132 people that are being served right now. 85 are in motion. 47 are waiting to see if anybody else gets in at one of the kiosks, because and still meet the services, so that they're not calling Michael saying, hey, we didn't leave within 5 minutes, or whatever the server. We can change it. I mean, this is virtual reality.
Just terrific. And you're going to be showing all of this at the Florida AV conference.
We'll take one more minute if we can. Let's take it down towards the end of the day.
Let's bring it down to about this point, and let us see
what happens in the evening peak. Okay, in the evening peak, we have 76, 84 vehicles moving. We've now served. We've had 5,400 customers so far today that we've served. We've missed 2,000, but we're going on through the day. It's now 6 p.m. Boom, take us to 10 p.m. There's a lot of nightlife in this virtual Tampa. Out here, we're now at 10:34 p.m. 9,000 passengers have been served. 3,700 we've missed. I guess we've missed most of the ones that we're going to miss, because throughout the whole day, we can cheat. We can look up at the top. We ended up with 3,800 missing. So most of the rest of the customers we're going to serve for the remaining hour and 2 minutes of the day, or we're going to do all right. And boom, take it to the end. What this does, folks, is it allows one to think about how you might give rides to, 10,000 people in a day with 100 vehicles. This has, if 100 vehicles have served a total of 9,285 trips, that means the productivity of each vehicle is average productivity is 92.85 persons trips per day. If in fact you've done that, you can go out there and charge each of those folks $1 for the use of the vehicle. You now have basically, you have for each of those vehicles, you have $100 per day to pay for that vehicle. You multiply that by 300. All right. That means you have $30,000 you've collected to pay for the capital cost of that vehicle. You use that vehicle for 5 years. Have whatever salvage value you want on that, maybe even zero. You can buy a pretty darn good vehicle for that $1. You charge another 20 or 30 cents for the maintenance. You charge another who knows what for the fuel, electricity, e-fuel, whatever. You charge another $1 for your marketing folks to go out and acquire a customer, your advertising, your operation and maintenance overhead. And as long as you don't have to charge for people in each one of those vehicles to sit around and wait all day long and sit with these vehicles, these 100 vehicles times 24 hours, because then you have to deal at that pay rate. As long as you don't have to do that, you can make this affordable. As we look, when Bryce and I did this for San Francisco for the 7x7, we're thinking $2.43 a ride is break-even fare. Cost, I should say. You charge $5. You're going to be in business. You're going to have a profitable operation. You're going to be able to provide your investors some return on their investment. You have a chance of survival. I think, Bryce thinks, I think Michael thinks, Fred thinks. This is all about giving people rides. Like an elevator. And if we go to the Atlantic article, the comment is, it's just a ride. You want to forget about it. The reason you go someplace is not for the ride. It's to get to the place where you want to go, where, oh my goodness, it's going to improve your quality of life. The thing you're hoping for in doing that is that how you got there, you can forget about it. That's why the elevator has been so successful, so market dominant, so revolutionary, so disruptive in moving people up and down in buildings. Nobody would go to the 14th floor of a building if they couldn't get in something that takes them to the 14th floor and just forgets about it. Yet these companies that are doing this are not doing it to give rides so people can forget about it. They want them to be taking selfies and I don't know what they want. Unbelievable.
And this tool that you've been working on, that Bryce has put so much work into as well, is going to be available, generally available, right? For communities.
It's on the inner
businesses to use.
tubes. It's on the inner tubes like everything else. Now, of course, Michael will say people put things on the inner tubes should know what the hell they're doing, right? I don't know. Maybe we don't know what we're doing, Michael. It's not for lack of trying, okay? It's not for lack of trying. And we're putting it out there so you can just take a look. You can say, hey, we're goofy. Hey, this is wrong. Oh, we're different than this. San Francisco, okay, 2.1 million type of these trips on a typical day. Longest one's 8.5 miles. It's only 49 square miles. You know, the diagonal is 10 if there was anybody going on the diagonal. Average trip length is, you know, under 3 miles of trips that are greater than a half a mile. The 2.1 million are greater than a half a mile. And just serve them. What the heck is the matter with it? And if you served them, people could just, hey, and forget about it. I got to a good Chinese restaurant. I got to go see the Golden Gate Bridge. I got to go do this. I got to go to the doctors. I got to go see my friend. I got to go. I got to go. The things that you want to go for, which is where you go. Oh, but no, we're going to put cones over all these things and keep them from going anywhere. I mean, if you have to then not only be able to go through the curviest road in the world and be able to deal with the hills and all the crazinesses and how many other people go through think a turning green light is a go straight green light, let alone go through all that stuff. And then you're going to put cones on the hoods and say, hey, you got to be able to do it with cones on the hood. Get out of here, San Francisco. Come on, man. Sorry. Bryce, thank you.
That's a little taste of what people are going to see, I think, at the Florida.
Well,
AV
we're going
Summit.
to show this and we're going to let people play. I don't know. Maybe we have smoke and mirrors. Maybe we're faking it. Maybe we're making mistakes. Maybe we don't know what the hell we're talking about. Hey, it's a free country. And this is a virtual world. What about it, Michael? What do you think?
I can't add any more to the discussion at this point.
Anyway,
Well,
Michael and I, we've been working on our book. It's, hopefully we can change the discussion from LiDARs and who knows what R's. It has to be safe. It has to work. It can't use smoke and mirrors. Okay? Does it have to be perfect? I don't know what. I'm not a perfectionist. Okay.
And the book we can look forward to come the beginning of next year. And it's something we're all going to look forward to.
Yeah, if we could,
we'll have another discussion on that.
We'll have another discussion on our book.
Hopefully several. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for spending time with us again.
My pleasure.
The site for the Dispatcher and more is michaellsena, SENA.com. Also, thank you to Bryce, Princeton class of 25. Great work on this, Bryce, and continue on.
And Bryce, get yourself on an airplane, come from Iowa, and classes start, and a week from today. I mean, we've got to be ready. I mean, what the heck? We got to be ready to get at the get-go here.
And you can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, wherever you turn to for podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Amazon, SoundCloud. Get your smart speaker to play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Bryce.